Cool. Do you want me to do the sound?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women's Soccer Show. I am Allie.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm currently dealing with a hyped-up toddler.
I just was hearing the music in my head, and then when you didn't come in at the right place with the hello, I started laughing.
We've got a jam-packed episode for you today, my friends. We are going to be covering everything from the NWSL strike to the madness that is the Asia Cup. We've got a very special guest with us in our later part, and we're going to talk about the upcoming WSL weekend, because I tell you now, Sarah will not find this one boring.
It's not that I find the WSL boring. It's that for a couple weekends they were sliding. I'm very excited for all of this. Our guest is here to talk FA Cup prize money as well. So jam-packed episode, like you said. Let's get into it. We had huge news out of the NWSL and NWSL Players Association on Monday night. It is official. The NWSL Players Association announced there is now a CBA in place, the first ever CBA for the NWSL Players Association and in the NWSL. This is massive news.
I think for both international listeners and some US listeners, we're going to start with what is a CBA, because I know, as I just said to Sarah, in the UK it means I can't be asked. So, and I'm sure that's not what it means this time round.
So a CBA, it's actually a term that's used a lot in sports around here. It is a collective bargaining agreement. It is essentially a labor agreement. So it is a contract between the labor union of the Players Association and the league itself. This is effectively the first CBA in the NWSL.
Wow, that is huge. Because I know they've been trying for a while, and it's... Do you think it was the threat of strike action that sort of...
In terms of the history of the CBA, it's wild now, not just now that there is one in place, but it's absolutely wild that there hasn't been one before. Because the NWSL has been around for 10 years, and there's never been one. In 2017, the NWSL Players Association was founded because there was a motion to get a CBA in place, but it's taken literally from then until now, and obviously conversations really ramped up last year, but this has been, make no mistake, a 4-year fight for the players. And I just want to call out, because it made me get goosebumps and it made me tear up when the players announced this in the NWSL Players Association tweet. They said, quote, "To the players who came before us, we stand on your shoulders. We hope we made you proud." And that just makes my heart warm, because it has been a long fight from where this league was 10 years ago to where it is now. And it is true that every year the players have taken steps to improve quality of life for the players, to improve players' rights, which is what this entire CBA is about, really. And we're actually going to just get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go into this, because I'm excited to see what they've finally managed to accomplish. So long.
After so long. So we don't have access to the full CBA yet. That, they said, is going to be available for all of us to read in its entirety on the NWSL Players Association website. And in the meantime, we know that there have been a few major wins. And really, the three major prongs that they outlined are, number one, compensation, number two, free agency, and number three, player safety. This is fantastic that these are the three major wins.
It is, but it also concerns me that this wasn't done before. This one for me especially is free agency. That's totally the one for me that I am just astounded by.
It's wild. That's let's talk about free agency first then.
Yeah,
because
please.
I agree. It's absolutely wild. So previously, teams owned players' rights indefinitely. If they played for a team and they went abroad and then came back 10 years later, that team would still own the rights to that player, and that player would have to go back to that particular team. There was no free agency, and that is stunning. Frankly, as we get into player safety, it's going to become even more stunning. But so what this really means is, number one, now there is free agency. So hooray for that. That's fantastic. It's really interesting to me because they structured their free agency very much like the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association here in the
Okay.
US, structured free agency deals in their new CBA, which came out in late 2020. And that was a huge deal. So this is women standing on the shoulder of women. Like, this is not just soccer players standing on the shoulders of former soccer players. This is all of the efforts of female athletes combined that are really making this happen. And that, I think, needs to be called out because I think it's really special.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it is just, women helping women, and it's massive. It's massive.
It can't live in a silo, right? Like, the WNBA players gaining means the NWSL players will gain, and so on and so forth for other leagues. Really quickly, to briefly outline what they mean by free agency now exists, how this is going to be structured is that for players who have a minimum of 5 or 6 years of service, they will become unrestricted free agents. What that means is that they simply can choose which team they want to go to, and that is it. Players with 3 years of service become restricted free agents. A restricted free agent is really a free agent, but there's a few qualifiers on it. So, for example, they can negotiate to go to certain clubs.
The thing is, though, it is making me concerned in the fact that they're calling it free agency. And yes, it's freer than they were, but it's not free agency like we know over here in Europe.
You mean like you can play for a club for a year and then go wherever you want if you want to?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, here in Europe, like, you go where you want or where want you. Like, there's no restrictions that you have to have played for so many years.
And I think that part of that is simply the difference between sports here in the US and how it functions here and sports in the UK and how it functions there. And part of it is like, yes, this is a stepping stone. This is the first ever CBA. Definitely there were certain things that I'm sure the NWSL Players Association had to compromise on.
Yep,
and so hopefully this in the next CBA negotiation will become even better. But the fact now that players do have rights to even choose after 5 years of service to go wherever they want is a huge win.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But it's massive to where they were. Like, it's a huge step from where they were, and like I said, springboard to where they could be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Going into this third prong of player safety. So there's compensation, free agency, and player safety. These are kind of like the three big prongs that the NWSL Players Association was highlighting as the big wins. Player safety. Some of these seem so basic, it's truly hard to picture the players not having it. For example, workers' compensation. I'm also going to call out for player safety. Some big wins under this prong are mental health leave. You see Kristen Press taking time off from the game because she needed it. Parental leave. They specified for born or adopted kids.
Amazing.
Simply if you are a parent, parental leave, which is fantastic. And then I did see one that stood out even more. No more playing on fields that require substantial conversion to dimensions of a soccer field. This screamed OL Reign. They play on a baseball field right now that gets converted into a soccer field. And while it's a very cool stadium, it's not a soccer field. So I'm really glad they specified this.
That's wow. I mean, I thought I moaned about some of the state of the pitches that our lot play on, but at least they're still football pitches.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the final win, we're saving almost, I don't know if it's the best, but it's definitely like a highlight big ticket item. There was a 160% increase in minimum salary to $35,000 a year with a 4% year over year increase. I'm going to say that again because it's not from $35,000, it's to $35,000. So again, with this, we take the wins where we can get them. It's still definitely a like literally by definition a salary within poverty lines in this country, but we're taking the wins where we can get them. And it's nice to see as well that they built into that a 4% year over year increase.
Yeah, and another great thing is that they're actually going to get a pension, which is a rarity, it seems, but they've actually agreed that they're going to, with each increase of wages, they're going to get an increase into their pension for when they retire, and it's also going to increase the stipend they get for housing, which I think everybody remembers the Sky Blue controversy with some of the housing that they had a couple of years ago.
Well, I'm really excited that I think that the main point that I think we've come to is we are so excited for this. This is monumental in the NWSL. This is monumental in women's sports. This is monumental around the world. And hopefully also this will become a better league for players, not only for the players who are already here, because their player safety is number one, but this will also become a better league that attracts more players because player safety is now at the forefront. And that is quite literally, to end, I think, to wrap this up, is really perfectly said. Tori Huster, the NWSLPA president, said, quote, "From our inception, the Players Association has put players first. Our mission in this historic CBA was to put the same philosophy at the center of the NWSL's future." And I think that that's exactly what they've done with this CBA, is to put players' rights first.
And so now we are going to the Asia Cup. Who would have thought the drama, the amazement, the highs, the lows in this competition. So I'm going to give you a very quick recap. So the quarterfinals have just happened, and boy were they surprising. So Japan beat Thailand 7-0. Australia lost to South Korea 1-0. China beat Vietnam 3-1, and then the Philippines, it was a tie against Chinese Taipei 1-1, so they went through 4-3 on penalties. Oof. So we've got to talk about what everybody's got to be talking about in this cup, is what happened Australia. Odds on favourites, they were the ones that was going to be, it was probably going to be them, Japan, crashing out the quarters.
Crashing out in the quarterfinals after coming in a strong favorite. Honestly, this is very surprising. There are a lot of teams in this tournament that are underrated, I think, but it's still extremely surprising for Australia, a team that just made it to the bronze medal match in the Olympics, crashing out in the quarterfinals. And this is the big surprise for me. I mean, there, like you said, a couple of these scorelines, but the Matildas, with this loss, would not have qualified for the Women's World Cup next year had they not been the host home country with the automatic bid. And that is shocking. They are really, like, to me, Australia is a staple in women's football, always consistently hovering around the top 10, and always somebody that can play the upsetter and beat somebody in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spot. And they simply wouldn't have been in the World Cup had they not been the host country.
That is surprising. I didn't even know that. That is surprising, because you think, like, how well they did last World Cup, how well they did in the Olympics, to not even have them in a World Cup because of how poorly they did in this showing. I can see that they did all right in the group stage, but when you look that they barely beat Thailand, and this is the team, remember, that the USA thrashed, was it like 10-0, 12-0 in
I mean, you look at Japan, they just beat Thailand 7-0 in the quarters just now.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that they barely beat them 2-1, what do you think? Why? Do you think it's the manager's not got his tactics right? Do you think the players are tired because they've had to come all over?
That's the big question with Australia, because you look at the group stage in the first two games, they seemed to be flying and they were getting their footing under them. And then that game happened with Thailand and they barely squeaked out a victory. And at first you look at the score and you're like, oh, maybe they weren't, maybe they were not playing all of their initial starters because they were already through. That's not what happened. To me, they're so up and down. It's which Australian national team am I going to get on any given day? Am I going to get the Australian national team that can beat Sweden on any given day, that can beat the US on any given day? Or am I going to get the Australian national team that can barely beat Thailand? And the big question is, what is going on with them? To be honest, I don't know. In previous matches, when we've seen Australia play, I think that when they play well, it's when they're not focused on Sam Kerr, when they're playing as a team and they're not playing get the ball to Sam Kerr at game. When they play terribly, it's when they're solely focused on, we need to get the ball to Sam Kerr or otherwise we're not going to score. This tournament has been an anomaly because they actually have been playing. They haven't really been playing the get the ball to Sam Kerr game. They are finding their footing as a team. They have young players like Fowler and Cooney Cross who are just outstanding and coming into their own. And we've said a million times before, this is the moment where they had a crop of young players like Van Egmond, Sam Kerr, Caitlin Ford, they all came in together and now they're in their prime. And you're mixing those players in their prime with these talented young players. And this should be the moment, and they cannot find consistency.
So what you're basically saying is Australia is the Reading of the international stage.
I suppose. And they're lucky that they got a bid to the World Cup because they automatically qualified, but they certainly have a lot to figure out within the next year before the World Cup happens, or otherwise, they're at risk to go out in the group stage, to be totally honest.
So we've put a lot of emphasis on what Australia did wrong. We've got to talk about South Korea just for a little bit, because it's what they did right. They went into this competition a very underrated squad. Like, they were a team that not many people knew about. You could probably, as WSL fans, you could probably name a couple of players, but I think
South Korea is the most underrated squad in this entire tournament. You mentioned Japan. They went in as a heavyweight along with Australia. China even went in as kind of like a favored among Japan and Australia. And South Korea got passed over quite a bit. Their squad is, first of all, the way that they play together and the way they play their quick 1-2 passes in very small spaces and keep possession across the field. South Korea, their starting lineup consists of 3 players in the FAWSL, and everybody else plays in the South Korean league. That in itself is such a wonderful tribute to how much this game has grown top to bottom. Not just that South Korea beat Australia, but that South Korea, a team that mainly consists of homegrown talent, is now competing with a team like Australia. The main point that I'm getting out of this tournament is the gap that has closed in international soccer that we even saw in the Olympics last year. It's closed even more from then until now, and it's going to even continue closing from now to the Women's World Cup.
And it can only get more exciting.
Absolutely.
Right? We're going to soon see the end of the cricket scores. I can feel it. Feel it in my bones. Though we do have to send out a mighty congratulations. I think all of us were huge fans of theirs because they were slightly the underdog, but the Philippines have qualified for their first ever World Cup because they won in their quarterfinals. And the cheer when that last penalty went in, I think, could be heard around the world because that was something special.
Absolutely. And the joy on their faces and the way that you saw the photos, you saw the videos, the elation and how much pride they had on their faces. It's really something special. And, just like we said, we're talking about this tournament and how weirdly from this tournament, we're seeing that gap closing in international soccer. And this is just another example of it.
So Australia are out. Who are the favourites now to take the win?
Yeah, Australia are out. And now we're looking ahead to semifinals. We've got South Korea versus the Philippines. That will be a very fun one. The Philippines, newly advanced. They're rolling in. South Korea, we just talked about, super underrated team. And then we've got China versus Japan. Like, that is a heavyweight battle. Japan are probably favored, but I think China is one, like South Korea, that really gets overlooked on the international stage. And this matchup, which, by the way, we haven't gotten to see a lot. This is essentially a matchup of the 2 biggest heavyweights in this fight. And it's going to be a really fun one. Honestly, in my opinion, whoever wins Japan versus China is going to take home the gold. And that's no offense to South Korea or the Philippines, but whoever wins this game between Japan and China will end up winning the tournaments.
I do have to say, I do quite like the way the semifinals have felt, in the fact that we're not getting a China-Japan final, that at least one of these new, fresh teams is going to make a final. Like,
I know what you mean, but I kind of disagree. Because to me, I think that the 2 best teams left here are China and Japan, and I would like to see the 2 best teams competing in the final. It's upsetting that one of them has to get knocked out in the semifinals just because of how it fell.
Clearly, you never support an underdog team, just saying.
I want whoever is the best team to win, and I think that if it's structured the other way, that's better for it. But I'm not going to be upset if South Korea or the Philippines are in the finals. So like I mentioned, semifinals, that's on Thursday. Finals will take place on Sunday. So tune into that.
And now where are we going, Sarah?
Now let's go around the world, around the world. I'm so much better at singing that than Helen is. Over to Mexico. La Liga MX is back. For those who don't know, La Liga MX is divided into 2 seasons for the year. The Apertura starts in the summer and runs through December, and then the Clausura starts in the winter and runs through the spring. So this means that each year, La Liga will crown 2 champions. So Monterrey won the Apertura in December and is now defending their title in the Clausura. They currently sit in 3rd place behind Guadalajara and Pachuca.
And going back down under in Australia, the A-League has continued despite the Matildas playing internationally. Sydney sit atop of the table with 22 points, followed by Melbourne City and Adelaide United. Upcoming matches will feature many of the top of the table teams competing against mid-bottom table teams, which could lead to further separation in the table.
Over to Spain. Sociedad is the surprise in La Liga. Having won 5 games straight, Sociedad sit in 2nd place with only 1 draw and 2 losses overall. Barcelona, of course, sit atop the table with 18 wins, no losses, no draws. Barcelona has scored 102 goals in 18 matches only. That's an average of over 5 goals a game. They continue to be absolutely dominant.
Over to the UK, it was FA Cup week this week, which ties nicely into what we are talking about with our guest. It was the 4th round, so this is the first round that the WSL teams enter. And to be honest, the results went pretty much as expected. However, there was one cup upset, which is that Tottenham went out to Leicester City. Tottenham are currently 4th in the table, whereas Leicester are battling relegation. And it looked like it was going to be a slam dunk for Tottenham, who scored in the 56th minute. And they held onto that 1-0 lead until the 80th minute when Leicester managed to claw back an equaliser. This took the game into extra time where, due to some dodgy defending and some dodgy goalkeeping decisions, Leicester managed to score 2 goals in extra time to take it 3-1 from Spurs. Spurs are now out of the FA Cup. That is going to be a huge blow to their manager Skinner, because this is the cup that everybody wants to win.
We'll see how they bounce back this weekend. And finally, over to France, Division 1 Arkema still sees the 3-point separation between Lyon and PSG at the top of the table, with Paris FC in 3rd. Paris FC have won just 2 out of their last 5 league games, though, and are far from running away with a 3rd and final Champions League spot. Fleury 91 is close on their heels, just 4 points behind.
Have you checked out Total Football Analysis yet? TotalFootballAnalysis.com provides researched analysis on loads of football games, including women's football. Want to know why Miedemar scores so many goals? Do you want to explore how City have turned it around this season? Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and sign up to learn more about the beautiful game. We have a special discount for listeners of the Women's Soccer Show. At checkout, type WOSO10 to get a full year for €10. That's €40 off the yearly subscription. Head over to TotalFootballAnalysis.com and type WOSO10 at checkout.
So, with this weekend being the 4th round of the FA Cup, we have had lots of big conversations happening, and one of the biggest ones that was started was the one about the disparity in prize money compared to the men's competition. So we're going to go in with our wonderful guest very shortly, but first just give you a bit of background. We've just played the 4th round, and those that won that got £2,000, which compared to the male equivalent is £90,000. For the winners of the FA Cup this year will get 25,000, whereas the men's equivalent is 1.8 million. So it's something we need to talk about here, and we are joined by the elected director of Lewes Football Club, a club that has a soft spot in my own heart for everything that they would do. Please welcome everybody, Charlie, who's going to talk to us about the campaign that they have started and what they are looking to get out of it. So thank you for joining us here on the WOSO Show, Charlie.
Yeah, hi, good evening, good morning and good day, wherever you are.
Absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind telling us listeners a little bit about what you do over at Lewes and how you got involved and things like that.
Okay, so potted history. So I've been involved with Lewes Football Club since 2009, actually. And the reason I got involved then was I just moved to Lewes fairly recently. The football club was in a bit of a problem. It was going to go out of business because of the previous rather small financial crisis, 2007 and 8. So anyway, so me and 5 other guys got involved. We, after 9 months discussion, took the club over for £1 and we mutualised it. So we turned it in 2010 into a 100% fan-owned football club. And I've been a director since then. And once we introduced elections in year 1, year 2, I've become an elected director. So my main gig, and this is my full-time unpaid job, if I'm honest, but I'm fortunate to be able to do it. My main gig, I guess, is to really, really drive ownership numbers, because we now have over 2,000 owners in 37 countries around the world, and anyone can join. That's my main gig. But also, I like to kind of get my big mouth into media and spout on about some of the campaigns that really, really drive us. And as you say, equalising the FA Cup prize money between men and women in England has been something that Lewes Football Club has been active for 3 or 4 years, and I think things are starting to get there gradually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because you at Lewes do something internally that's quite similar, if I remember rightly, in the fact that you guys split the prize money equally, so what the men get, the women get, and you also pay your players the same, regardless of what team they play.
It's nuts, isn't it? It's just someone has a crazy idea that why don't we split our resources equally? All our resources equally. So playing budget, not all individual players are paid the same, but the playing budgets are the same since 2017 between our men's and women's teams. They've played on the same pitch for some time, same training resources, same marketing, same everything. So whatever one team wins in their respective FA Cup, everything goes in the pot. It's a little bit like a marriage, to be honest with you. There's 2 people married, one might earn more than the other. The money goes in the pot. Everybody shares it. What's not to like?
Well, you say that everyone wants that. I'm sure our viewers saw on our Twitter, because we clipped the link, but we will play it in this episode. Our friend Simon Jordan over on TalkSport had a very interesting, and I say interesting in inverted commas, point about saying that because the women don't earn as much as the men, he even compared it to reparations and slavery, which was its own issue altogether.
Let's just quickly go ahead for those who weren't on our social. Let's just play that clip really quickly, and then Charlie, we can jump in with your answer.
No,
so
we agree
would
that.
it be?
So I don't know.
Siobhan, what's the fair amount?
I think 1.2 million. It's 25,000 that they're going to get if they win. Times that by 50 years of women were banned from playing football. 1.2 million. I know you're turning your nose up at that, but it's not a silly argument. It's not a silly argument. It's fair across the board.
No, it's a silly argument.
Why is it silly?
How is it so silly?
Because it's not relevant to where we are now, and it's not.
It's hugely relevant to where we are now.
There's no basis. So, okay, so we
1.2 million.
We automatically assume that the quality of the women's game would have brought out the same commercial broadcasting deals in the Premier League, in European football, and in world football. Okay, if that's an argument we can substantiate, that's fine. But if we're talking about the here and now, right, so what you're asking for is reparations. So let's make reparations across the world. Every time someone was in slavery, we'll make reparations for that. It's not about reparations, it's about the here and now.
What's a more accurate figure, Simon?
Well, it isn't 2%.
So you've just heard it there, the Simon Jordan clip. So, and unfortunately, I made the mistake of going into the comments and seeing that a lot of mainly men agreed with him. So how can we win this uphill battle when people are just like, not worth it, women, which was the main response I saw.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to do is to understand that, and this isn't necessarily about Simon Jordan, of course, but we understand that the great majority of the pushback coming from male people is that they don't know the information behind it. They don't know some of the facts behind it, and they don't understand, apart from emotionally, why these women might want to get some more money. Most people and most men people don't know about how women's football was banned in 1921, till 1971. Then there was no FA backing till 1993 when they started a committee. So, when we can then start to talk to people about the 70 or 73 years of either being banned or not invested in at all, then it just, sometimes I find that facts are really just jarring people and stopping them for a moment. So I would say try and give information and facts back about how come women's football is in this situation historically, and then what would happen if this money was transferred, reallocated in the FA Cup to men's football. So the men's and women's FA Cups, so a total of 1,036 teams enter both. That's 736 men, 300 women, etc. So if you look at the way the prize money is currently allocated, as you and your listeners, I'm sure, would already know, it's a massive allocation towards women's football. But there's also a massive allocation, which people don't seem to spot, towards men's Premier League and to a lesser extent Championship clubs. So what you find is that if you take the prize money from the quarterfinal of the Men's FA Cup onwards, that's just 8 teams, each year, the quarterfinal onwards, then 43% of all the prize money goes to just the quarterfinal onwards. So £6.84 million is allocated to just those 3 rounds, quarterfinal, semi-final, final, 43% of the entire total. So what we are proposing as one of our proposals is that we take a lot, not quite all, but most of the money of the men's prize money for the quarterfinal away, and we take 6.2 million of that away, and we reallocate that, not just across women's football, but reallocate it to men's lower league and non-league teams as well. And that way, the FA spend no more money. The vast majority of teams, men's and women's, are better off. In fact, the 96% of teams entering the FA Cup, men's and women's, will be better off under the reallocation we're suggesting. And just 4% of teams might be worse off. Invariably, those are Premier League teams. And in the Premier League, as again, your listeners, informed listeners will know, is that, the minimum revenue anyone's getting just by being in the Premier League is around £100 million. It's not like they kind of need it or are going to miss it. So as far as we're concerned, the FA Cup and standing by the FA slogan of for all seems like a bit of a no-brainer to reallocate it. And I think even Crystal Palace will be better off. So my answer to Simon Jordan, which is a bit of a long one, Simon, so apologies, is that as a business person, you may well be better off and your club may well be better off. But in any event, 96% of the participants in the industry will be better off. Seems fair, doesn't it?
You're mentioning this reallocation of money, and it's clear that this is very well thought through. Do you mind just telling for our listeners what is this campaign in a few words, and how can they help? How can they share? How can they get involved? Because I think everybody here listening, if we know our listenership, wants to get involved, wants to help in this redistribution of the FA Cup prize money. So do you mind just sharing a few words about really what this campaign is and how people can get involved?
Sure. Hat tip anyway to the Women's Fans Football Collective, which recently formed, which is across all different clubs in England. So I think one thing, if you want to follow them on Twitter or follow us on Twitter, you'll get ahead of anybody else the way you can find the information. So you can essentially download assets. And the sort of thing we're looking at is to have pre-written letters to, for example, your MP in order to talk about it. Because the good news is that members of Parliament in this country are now taking notice. There was a debate less than a week ago in Westminster Hall about women's football, where the fantastic Tracy Crouch spoke and the member for Sunderland and other people spoke. And it was very gratifying because you think, wow, people are talking about it more and talking about the FA Cup. So these are the people that we need to influence. And I think we can work with this. I hope that this time round we can bring about a really big change. So long-winded answer, but essentially follow us on Twitter, Lewes FC Women or Lewes FC Men. Follow Women's Football Collective. I'm sure you can give out the handle for that as well. And keep an eye on our website, lewesfc.com. Hopefully in about a week or so, we'll have the assets ready for you.
That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Charlie. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Definitely some eye-opening figures that even I don't think me and Sarah were aware of just by redistributing.
Absolutely.
That too few rounds could make such a huge difference. So thank you once again for joining us.
No, absolutely. Really nice to talk to you and stay angry.
All right. Thanks so much, Charlie. Over to our final subject. We are talking WSL because these weekend's matchups, oh boy, I'm very excited. I look at the first matchup and I get excited. Look at the second matchup and get excited. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, every single matchup this weekend is absolutely killer. I probably sounded so American in that. We're going to actually do our picks. We never do this for the WSL, but in a moment, Allie, we're going to do our picks for every single one of these matchups because this is going to be really fun and every single game is so competitive. So, but to highlight a few, we are seeing a top of the table battle. We've got Arsenal sitting at number 1, facing Manchester United sitting at number 3. And then we've got Chelsea at number 2, facing Man City at number 5. And then we've got a bottom of the table relegation clash between Birmingham City and Leicester City.
What more can you want for your weekend?
I'll tell you, we could want Everton versus Reading. No, we won't get into that. We're going to make our picks. So Arsenal, Man U, who are you taking?
As much as it pains me, Man U.
I have to take Arsenal because who would I be if I didn't if I turn my back on my squad right now? So you're on Man U, I'm on Arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea, City.
I'm going to get crucified by my friends, but I'm taking Chelsea.
I'm taking Chelsea too because it's Emma Hayes. It's Emma Hayes, period. You know what?
Yes.
And if you're talking, we should have said this at the top, but if we're talking game changers, if I'm picking one game changer I can have on my team, on my bench, on my sideline in all of the WSL, that's who I'm picking. Birmingham City, Leicester City.
Leicester. I think Birmingham are on the down and Leicester are on the up.
You know what? I'll take Birmingham City. I think that they're a better squad than Leicester City is right now. And even if Leicester City's on the up and Birmingham City's on the down, I think that they'll be able to pull it out. Everton versus Reading. I love this middle of the table clash.
I was going to say it's like two of the most inconsistent teams.
Exactly.
I'm going to give it to Reading. I think Kelly Chambers is sort of finding her groove at the moment. Everton look lost, to be honest.
As much as I want to just pick the opposite, I've got to give it to Reading. This is a very interesting one. Tottenham versus Brighton. Tottenham's sitting in 4th and Brighton sitting all the way down in 8th. And yet this does feel like anybody could win this game. Tottenham coming off a big loss and starting to fall in the table. And Brighton, while they've actually fallen, they haven't won any of their last 5 games. They can compete.
Is it a cop-out to say it's going to be a 0-0 draw?
No, you think it'll be a draw?
Yeah, I think it'll be a draw.
I think Tottenham's going to take it. I think Skinner will learn and they'll bounce back. And finally, last but not least, because we can't forget, I don't even know if I shouldn't even ask you, but I will. Aston Villa versus West Ham.
I think, it might be a Villa. Of course I'm backing West Ham to take this.
Let me ask you though, if Villa was sitting in like 3rd and West Ham was sitting like 10th in the table.
Yeah.
Would you still take West Ham even though you knew in your heart that Villa was the better team?
I still back West Ham to beat Chelsea, Man City and Arsenal. So
yeah.
Yes.
So some people say don't bet with your heart, bet with your head. And some people just fully bet with their heart.
I've lost a lot of money betting with my heart, my friend.
I have to. I got to take your hammers. I really do. Aston Villa have dropped 4 of their last 5 and West Ham is looking stronger and stronger with every single game throughout this season. And that's everything. Head over to our Patreon / The WOSO Show for a bunch of extra content. We've got News in 10 going up there every single Tuesday. We've got Emma Hayes press conference highlights that Allie's been grabbing. We've got behind the scenes and so much more. So head on over there, subscribe, support the WOSO Show, support women's soccer. It's like €2 a month. Head on over there and enjoy the games this weekend, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday.
I've been Sarah.
And I've been Allie.
This is the Women's Soccer Show. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.